Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. I think it's impossible to overemphasize just how insane it is that our current environment minister, who is holding the Canadian energy industry hostage, is just a flat out eco-socialist. Not enough Canadians seem to know about this because I think if enough people did know how radical Stephen Guilbeault was, he wouldn't be in the current position he's in. We had to get rid of Randy Boissonnault recently when enough Canadians found out he was an actual fraudster and faking his Indigenous identity to basically steal government contracts. But Stephen Guilbeault still remains in his place at the Environment Ministry. What prompted me to make this video is just Stephen Guilbeault parroting the lies that the Conservatives are not willing to give Canadians a tax break, where he's in front of this, I guess, mural. There's a lot of politicians these days trying to pretend they're Rick Mercer. A lot of them doing these walk and talk videos or standing in front of graffiti or murals. And so here's Stephen Guilbeault claiming that it's actually the Conservatives who are not fiscally conservative.
Hi, folks. You won't believe this, but Pierre Poilievre and the Conservative Party of Canada just announced that they would be voting against the GST tax break for the holidays that we're proposing.
Yeah, it's because it's a temporary measure. And it's a temporary measure that's about to give way in April to a massive increase to the carbon tax. A doubling of the carbon tax is about to hit, which Stephen Guilbeault leaves out of this. So, of course, they're going to be voting against a almost purely symbolic measure to give people a few half dollars of their own money back, let them preserve a little bit more money. Right before you hit them with the carbon tax, the Conservatives are counter-offering and saying, how about you just pass the carbon tax? And also, here's the game. When you're in opposition, you can't hold anything up from being passed. It's all up to the Liberals, the Bloc, and the NDP. So if you're a Conservative, what's the point in voting in a very flawed government plan, even though there's technically some benefits for Canadians when you know it's just a front for the Liberals to increase tax later? Oh, and in the same month of April, when the taxes increase on the carbon tax, they also cut Canadians a $250 check just to, again, alleviate some of the shock of how much gas is going to be going up.
That's just 2 years ago, Pierre Poilievre was in favor of such a measure. So from where I'm from,
he was in favor of a summer-long GST HST tax holiday that also would coincide with eliminating the carbon tax altogether. The thing is that Poilievre has the consistent position that he is in favor of getting rid of the carbon tax, and he will not vote for anything that is basically attempting to preserve or distract from the carbon tax.
We call this all talk, no action. He pretends that he's there for Canadians, that he wants to support Canadians, yet he had an opportunity to do that today, and he did exactly the opposite. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. The man who supports raising taxes on everybody to pay for pie-in-the-sky climate plans. This is the thing that drove me up the wall. Whenever I hear Liberals, especially socialists, somebody who actually called themselves a proud socialist in the House of Commons, when these people come out and they try and shame the Conservatives on an issue like this, it gets me a little bit heated because I'm about to go into the stuff that he's now proposing on our oil and gas industry, capping emissions, capping production on the oil and gas industry, and celebrating it as actually very good for the Canadian economy. It's insane that this man is allowed in this position with this amount of influence over our economy and, by extension, Canadians' own individual prosperities. But before I get into the next thing that Guilbeault is going on about, I just want to remind you guys, if you're not yet a subscriber to the channel, make sure you do go and subscribe. I know about 75% of people watching any given video I upload are not yet subscribers. But anyways, here, without further ado, we have Stephen Guilbeault saying, ahead of this Hill Times article, on top of this Hill Times article, oil and gas emissions cap will create new investment and jobs in Alberta. And this is the opinion of Mr. Stephen Guilbeault. He says, investing in decarbonization is good for our planet and our economy. Oh my goodness. Capping emissions from the oil and gas sector will in fact drive job creation investment that would not otherwise occur. What is he saying here? Well, if we cripple the economy in one way, that means it will have to grow in a different way. That's like saying if we ban the sale and creation of couches, it will be really good for the chair industry. I guess so, But that's economically illiterate. But I don't expect a socialist to be economically literate because their entire ideology stands against understanding the relationship between supply and demand and realizing that GDP based on government spending is not real prosperity. That's actually what I hate about economics, modern economics. You will have an economics professor straight face tell you that GDP from government and GDP from the private sector are interchangeable and it has the same value to the economy. It doesn't. If 100% of the GDP was spent by government, you will quickly start having the GDP go down every year because the government is a sucking force on the economy, not a providing force, not a creating force. The private sector, private industry creates jobs. What Stephen Guilbeault has been doing is funding things like cricket farms for human consumption and putting money into boondoggle solar initiatives, wind initiatives that, yes, technically create some value, but it's not creating as much value as the subsidies they are getting. I've been talking to people who are in the industry of trading energy, or basically the energy industry of buying and selling energy onto grids to private corporations, all that stuff. And they have confirmed green energy is pretty much a scam in the sense that the taxpayer, if they knew the increased costs in providing solar and wind, they would say, ban that from the grid. It's a massive boondoggle. Because while technically every unit of energy is purchased onto the grid at the flat rate that the government announces, if you're providing wind or solar, you get extra kickbacks from having to like lay out long copper wire all the way to the nearest like energy, not plant, but energy station. You get a lot more subsidies from being in the green energy industry. You get a lot more grants. The amount of money for energy, for solar to get onto the grid is so much higher than getting natural gas or coal onto the grid. I don't know why we banned coal. But we have some more posts from Mr. Stephen Guilbeault here. He says, oil and gas companies are colluding with Pure Poilievre to drop the price on carbon pollution. Are we even surprised? After raking in max donations from big oil lobbyists at executive fundraisers, of course he wants to cut the industrial carbon price and let them off the hook. I don't even know what he's trying to say here. It's this dumb populist argument that Pure Poilievre's working he's behind the scenes taking money from big donors. A big donor in Canada can only donate up to $1,750 and I think like 42 cents. That's not a big donor. Oh, but they're from the evil, scary oil and gas companies. Sorry, is any solar or wind providers giving Stephen Guilbeault and the Liberal Party money? I guarantee it. And wow, I can't believe people who would give money to the party who is better for their specific economic interests. The oil and gas companies would give money to the people who don't want to cap their production, who are not holding a gun to their head, and the Liberals would be getting dollars from people who they subsidize. Who would have thunk it that the Liberals might get money from the people that they give money to? That happens all over the place. Several Liberal corruption scandals have involved basically money trading hands between government officials or the Liberal Party and people that they are currently subsidizing. That was the We Charity scandal, although that had an illegal element because they were giving money directly to Trudeau family members. Anyways, but the CBC article that he has this as a header on, or at least the graphic the Liberals made out of the CBC thing, says, meet the group spending the most on social media ads attacking the carbon tax. And again, it's this ridiculous idea that the idea, and it's this, you've probably heard it if you've ever watched conservative coverage of American politics. It's this Republicans pounce or conservatives pounce narrative, but in this instance, it's oil and gas companies pounce. Oh, I can't believe the oil and gas companies are spending money fighting us on us trying to kill their industry. Kind of makes them bad people for wanting to fight back against against the death of their industry, especially a death of an industry that helps Canadians. Oh my goodness. But he then shows his true socialist colors in this post right here, and there's not technically anything wrong with it. He's just talking about how they've extended the carbon tax rebate subsidies to small businesses, and he says, Pistachio Cafe is one of the 600,000 businesses across the country who will be receiving that Canadian carbon rebate for small and medium businesses. Thank you for having us, Jess and James, or Jen and James. I think I had that slight Jesse James kind of a association in my head when I was reading their names. But he's just, what this is that Stephen Guilbeault hates big business. And I'm not pro big business, just as I'm not pro small business or medium sized businesses or sole proprietors. You shouldn't be in favor of any kind of business. But the government constantly wants to pick winners and losers in the economy, and this is another way of Stephen Guilbeault being able to pick winners and losers. He gets to target rebates to smaller businesses, which is basically just redistributing money from larger ones, because Stephen Guilbeault mostly just hates success, and so he wants to take money from people who are very successful and give it to people who are less successful. And no doubt, I wonder if this cafe has higher profit margins than another coffee shop would. That's the funny thing, especially with people like Jagmeet Singh. They constantly promote like small local grocery stores that have like way higher profit margins than the corporate grocery chains that they constantly attack for price gouging, even though the highest profit margin in any of the grocery store chains is Metro, who Jagmeet Singh wouldn't criticize for the longest time because his brother Guritan Singh is currently a lobbyist for Metro, but he at least hits Loblaws, who has I believe, a profit margin of 2.5%, but goodness.
Point in 25 years, and it's because of people like you who are doing their part, who are helping us in Canada make sure that we can grow the economy, create jobs, and fight pollution at the same time. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you so much.
Stephen Guilbeault here in beautiful Gananoque at the wonderful Pistachio Cafe to talk about the Canada Carbon Rebate. So I'm with Jen and James, owner of the...
Why do I feel like I can tell these people's political views by just looking at them? You know, not trying to take too much of a shot, but there is that kind of man wearing a very severe man bun and with like the very unkempt beard and thick rimmed glasses that's trying to show you, I don't take myself too seriously. I'm just a cynical millennial who doesn't actually, I couldn't be conservative. Look at how I dress.
This little gem here.
Thank you so much for being here, and we're so excited to learn more about the...
And they have the hate has no home here sign because they're good people. They're good people, and no doubt Stephen Guilbeault picked them because they are virtue signaling leftists.
Rebate?
We made the announcement that we are also by December returning the money to businesses, small, medium-sized businesses across the country. A company like yours with about 10 employees will receive on an annual basis in return about $4,000.
Isn't he basically admitting here that the carbon tax has been affecting businesses that have nothing to do with the energy industry? Because he pretends like you don't have to worry about the carbon tax unless you're a big polluter. Well, why do these people need a rebate to make up for their costs if it's only supposed to be hurting big polluters? And it's not like this company exactly needs to pay for that much energy. This small business, who's probably getting quite the large rebate compared to an individual's rebate, they're a cafe. All they really have is heating and power. And yeah, that is a cost. The carbon tax has been heavy on that. But Stephen Guilbeault is tacitly admitting that on even something as out of the way from the energy industry as a cafe, the carbon tax is hurting them enough that they also need a rebate to make up for the large costs of the carbon tax on their business. And I'm not saying that they have small costs. My point is, even a cafe needs the rebate in order to make up for a lot of the issues that the carbon tax is causing. And all this is on the back of the energy industry, who is having their industry decimated by the sheer amount of taxes, regulations, and now caps being attempted to be put in place. I don't think that the cap's going to have time to be put in place with the short amount of time the Liberal government has left to live. But the fact that we're even proposing this is insane. It's obviously economically authoritarian, but I wouldn't expect anything different from Stephen Guilbeault, a proud socialist who doesn't like anyone who is successful. If you are wildly successful, he will have a problem with you. He also probably doesn't like Starbucks because they don't hate Israel. But what can you do with there? Anyways, well, that's it for me today, guys. If you want to support the show, donate to the Give, Send, Go legal fund in the description of the video below, as well as pinned at the top of the comments. I also have my website there, WyattClaypool.com. Sign up if you want my recommendations for nomination races and leadership elections whenever they happen to pop up in your area. I'm trying to grow the list to a big enough size so that I have more than like 1 or 2 people to notify in each riding. And at that point, I have the ability to like let you know who is the most competent and the most conservative person that you can vote for. And I can like basically rank a ballot in absentia, and then you guys can take or leave my recommendations or even send me back information that you know about local races that can influence what I might mention to other people on, who's a good candidate to back, who's somebody who should watch out for. Because the problem right now with the Conservative Party being so popular is it incentivizes a lot of people who are not that conservative to jump into conservative nomination races, because it's the only way of being able to win is getting in the conservative race in many of these ridings. Like a good 65-70% of ridings are conservative shoo-ins. And if there's an open nomination in any of these, you're going to have liberals and trade unionist NDP activists coming out of the woodwork to pretend that they've always been conservative. And then they're going to get into government and be sluggish, and they're not going to be a positive asset for Pure Polyev to work with. Anyways, so that's it for me. Like, share, and subscribe. See you guys all later.